Hi folks, in this video I'm going to be talking to you about a Grateful Dead song called I Know You Rider, which the Dead played as part of a larger kind of seamless suite or medley with their song China Cat Sunflower, and you can hear all about China Cat Sunflower in the previous video, link in the description. So I Know You Rider is a traditional folk or blues song that the Dead performed often, actually from the very, very beginning of their existence as a band. But after they were China Cat Sunflower, then they constantly paired the two of them together. So our story here picks up at the end of China Cat Sunflower. We're going to be talking about the version of it from their Europe 72 album. Here is their cover. So we're here at the end of verse 3 of China Cat Sunflower. A very interesting thing happens here, which is they stay on this D7 chord for quite a while, so long that the key actually changes even though the chord doesn't. I will explain what I mean by that in a second. Let's just start by listening to the beginning of the jam. So we're on G, 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 G. Now we're on D7. And we just stay on it. That to me is the most interesting thing that happens in this whole recording as far as the harmony goes, and I will tell you why. Because again, chord doesn't change. We're on D7 the whole time, but what happens perceptually is your sense of the key center changes. At the beginning of this section on the D7, we've just come from this long stretch of being in G. It feels like we're in G and we're hearing the 5 chord in G. But after it sits there long enough, after a few measures, you just kind of forget that you're in G and you start to hear D7 as the key center, as being like harmonic home base, just because of its sheer repetition. So instead of being in the key of G, you now start hearing that you're in D mixolydian mode. And D mixolydian mode is very similar to D major. But in D major, you would have the note C sharp as the 7th scale degree, and in D mixolydian, it's C natural. That is D mixolydian mode, and we're going to be in D mixolydian mode for most of the rest of this jam and this tune. All right, having just heard the most interesting harmonic thing that happens in this tune, I'm now going to play you the most interesting rhythmic thing that happens. So the tempo just doubled. Everybody is playing with the same feel, except for the drummer Bill Kreutzmann, who abruptly switches from this kind of mid-tempo 90 beat per minute funk feel to a 180 beat per minute country feel. He just plays twice as many drum hits in the same span of time, basically. He plays twice as many snare hits. Listen to it again. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty cool, huh? And we're going to stay in this double time feel, this 180 beat per minute country feel for the rest of the recording. The other interesting thing that happens here is that Bob Weir plays the lead guitar for most of this transitional jam. So in the left channel, you've got Jerry Garcia, who is nominally the lead guitarist and who has played all the solos so far. In the right channel, you got Bob Weir, who's been playing rhythm guitar, like chords and counter melodies up until this point. But he really plays the lead guitar for much of what happens next. So another interesting thing rhythmically happens here. It's subtle. The hypermeter turns around. So the hypermeter is groups of measures that form these kind of functional units. So in this jam, the hypermeter is these 2-bar units starting on odd numbers. So here's the hypermeasure starting in bar 91. So that's a unit. And then there's a hypermeasure rather, starting on bar 93. But then here there's this odd bar, and then the hypermeter turns around. So now the units start on the even numbered bars. So that's a hypermeasure. And then this is a hypermeasure starting on measure 100. So see if you can hear where Bill Kreutzmann turns it around. There, now it's turned around. It's subtle, but it's cool. It kind of puts you off balance. All right, so I'm going to skip ahead now. This jam is delightful. Love listening to Bob Weir play lead guitar. But eventually he pulls back and Jerry switches over to his more customary role as lead guitarist. So here is that part. So you can see Jerry kind of steps up and starts playing lead. That happens for a while. And then there's this transitional period, or this transitional section where Jerry steps back and is no longer playing lead. Bobby's not playing lead. Nobody's really playing lead. They're all playing accompaniment. And it feels like this kind of just rest, this throat clearing before I Know You Rider begins. But it's really long. So you can hear him kind of waiting for a cue to start the song. Still waiting. Still waiting. Still waiting. It's long. Okay, here it comes. I know you right, don't miss me when I'm gone. All right, so let's talk about the harmony in here. It's pretty simple, but very effective. So here's D Mixolydian mode. We've been on D7 this whole time. And then there is the C chord, which is the 7 chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Build a chord on there. Get the C chord. And then we get G, which is the 4 chord. And then back to D7. So you get that 1, 7, 4, 1. And that 7, 4, 1 Mixolydian mode progression is something that is extremely common in rock and roll, especially classic rock, especially Grateful Dead songs. So here is the second phrase of the chorus. It's the same as the first. 7, 4, 1. But then third phrase is harmonically very different. You can see just because the color scheme changes. So we've got this F chord. And F is interesting because you cannot make an F chord from the notes in D Mixolydian mode. What's really happening here is a mode change or a key change. And it's a bit ambiguous what is going on. So you could think of it as being a move to the key of F major. So here's F, the F major scale. And the next chord is C, and you could think of C as being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5 chord, and F, and then it just goes back to 1. So that's a 5-1 cadence in F major. That's a possible interpretation. The other interpretation is that we're not in F at all. We're in D minor, D natural minor. So we could think of that F chord as being 1, 2, 3. And we could think of the C chord as being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Except instead of landing on D minor, we're landing back on D7 to return to Mixolydian mode. It's really 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. D minor and F major have the same notes in them. If you play D minor from F to F, then you get the F major scale. And if you play F major from D to D, you get D natural minor. So same thing. So that is the form of I Know You Rider, and this same form continues for the entire rest of the song. So here's verse 1. It's identical harmonically to chorus 1 and also melodically. 7, 4, 1. It's the first phrase. Second phrase. 1, 7, 4, 1. And then here comes the third phrase. We got F, C. and back to D mixo. So yeah, whether you want to hear that as D minor or F major, up to you. And that same form carries all the way through the song. It's interestingly similar to 12-bar blues. You've got these 3 phrases, each of which is, well, here they're 8 bars long because we're in double time, but you could also think of it as 4 bars of regular time if you want. But it's not a blues chord progression. It's this very different kind of chord progression. So that is cool. So anyway, we've got a verse, then we've got a guitar solo, got another verse, another chorus, another guitar solo, and then the final chorus. And in the final chorus, the arrangement changes quite a bit. So here we go. Ooh, just vocals and drums. Haunting. So raw. And then the drums drop out. So just a cappella. And then the F part. And a big D7 to end. So there you have it. I Know You Rider, beautiful traditional folk tune is played by the Grateful Dead. I want to talk a little bit about the Dead singing. It's raw. Yeah, it's pretty raw. It's not awesome. And the funny thing is, Europe 72 is a live album, but after they recorded it, they went into a recording studio and redid all the vocals because the vocals from the actual live performances were much messier even than this. Even in the studio, though, it's still pretty raw. But, you know, if you're a Deadhead, that rawness is part of the charm. Like, it sounds like a bunch of regular people singing, not a bunch of awesome virtuoso singers. Feels more like, hey, I could be in this band, right? But I know many non-Deadheads find it annoying. We're all right, yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Talk to you soon.